بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. So it says we were doing janazah, so it says condolences are given to the family for of the deceased for up to 3 days, okay, after his burial. Okay, and here, because his Matn of Shuja is just very brief, he's not going to mention who you give condolences to. But what do you think, right? Given that I'm a extremist, what's it called, knuckle. So this cat. So no, extremist when it comes to gender interactions. What do you think the hukam is about giving condolences to a member of the opposite sex?
Men should give to men, women give to women.
Exactly. So this is not me speaking. This isn't Sheikh Farid, who is a terrorist and raises trying to get people implicitly into his terrorist camp where women are in dark rooms and wear niqab. That's not what I'm talking about. It's like when you just read the fuqaha, this is the kind of general idea that they all have, and it's across the madhahib. So here's a sister, for example. So you might imagine that, okay, here's a sister. She just lost her dad. She's not really thinking about the opposite sex too much, right? That's not really on the cards right now. But you know what? Shaitan starts with one place and takes you somewhere else, right? So while it is true, it's like here's a sister, she's really, really heartbroken. She's just confused about life. She's trying to make sense of everything. And you go up to her and say, Sister, I'm really sad, I knew your dad, and she's like, help me understand this. So he was talking to her like, sister, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now these two things are happening in tandem. One is you are helping her process this thing, which is a good thing. Alhamdulillah, it's good. Helping her process it. What does it mean? How can your dad can still be with you? What should you be doing? What did your dad want from you? Da 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 da, which is really good. There's khair. At the same time, at the same time, you are now opening the door, this emotional door, and this emotional door is very broad, very wide, and very dangerous. Okay, so now she feels close to you. She feels like you understand her. She feels like, oh my God, there's this one person in the world that really I feel close to emotionally. Okay, and where does that lead to? The next stage, and the next stage, and the next stage. That's how things are. So we have to understand A, the slippery nature of the shaitan, and B, the slippery nature of emotions, right? Slippery nature of emotions. So I remember again, like, so you have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. So much so that the benefit of comforting somebody is outweighed by the harm of where it leads to. So you're like, literally, the sister is crying, and you're not going to go up to her and give her a few words of condolence, like, subhanAllah, you're a weirdo. Like, you're messed up, bro. So, yeah, because I know that there's more harm than benefit. It is better for a sister to sit there crying than I'm going to go and sit next to her and say, sister, it's okay. That is true. So somebody might look at you like, dude, you're like weird, right? I knew all of you shuyukh, you guys are all crazy, man. You just like, you have, you just like, you know, that's why I'm not Muslim anymore. That's why I became Christian. Christian, like we care about love, right? So yeah, but where does it lead you, right? It's not emotionally mature, and it's not in keeping with the deen, right? So yes, they've mentioned the books of fiqh. You don't do that. You do not go up to some sister and say, hey, I feel I'm really sad. This happened, da 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 da, right? Because you're opening these doors, and those doors are nebulous, right? Those doors are the where those doors lead is not clear. It's not a clear route. Oh, I was just talking to her about X. I know, but it's just a whole emotional thing, right? Sister, if you need any help, I'm here for you, right? You can't do that. You can't do that, right? Um,
Okay, can I ask a question?
so no, go ahead.
So this makes sense based on all the hikam that you've shared with us, but is there any thing in the Sharia about janaza in terms of going to the janaza of a woman, or none of that exists? Like anyone can go to anyone's janaza, right?
Oh yeah, you can do that. But I guess so then some of these things might be a bit weird, right? So I remember there was a question in Egypt, okay? The question in Egypt was, this is kind of rural Egypt in the south, where it's expected that you go to your husband's janaza. Okay? So here's his sister, and she's like, well, fiqh-wise, I shouldn't really be going to my husband's janaza, right? Or whatever, following a position or whatever it is. But culturally, what it meant in their culture is, Alhamdulillah, the guy's dead. So like if you didn't turn up, the woman in that culture, if she didn't turn up, it would be like a huge like societal statement. Like she probably knocked this guy off, right? Like she didn't even turn up to his funeral. Like, wow, it's crazy. So basically the sheikh was saying, like, listen, this is the cultural situation, this is what it means in your culture, right? And so there's a big difference between going to somebody's janaza. Like, why did you go to her janaza, bro? Did you love her? Like, no, she just sister in the community, she died. Like it's very different. And given that she's not alive anymore, right? But there could be some exceptions of like why specifically you went out of state and went to this sister's janaza, like why? Right? Then maybe this is a bit strange, right? And so we can't go, we can't go to extremes of like, oh, somebody might think this, somebody might think that. But there's a big difference between opening an emotional connection with somebody who is alive, right, and is unmarried versus versus oh, you turned up to someone's janaza, right? Or you made a speech at her janaza, like, well, why, right? So your wife might be jealous, right? So your husband might be jealous, like, why did you go to his janaza, you know? But it's not, in principle, right? Men should go to janaza. The people, the whole community of men should go to anybody's janaza, male or female, doesn't matter. Does that make
Well,
sense?
and one other small thing, and this is probably going to sound odd. It certainly odd, probably in Muslim countries, but at least once every 2 months, wherever I've lived in the U.S., New York, California, whatever, we get a request to attend a janazah for someone who has no Muslim family. Is there more reward to do something like that?
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. So they have no Muslim family. There's nobody to bury them. There's none of these, right? It's a communal obligation. So you're fulfilling this communal obligation, right? And it's very hard if you have underfunded masjid. Like, well, we don't have anybody. Like, I've had situations where like they're like, please do the janaza. I'm like, it's not my job, bro. Like I was a teacher in Islamic school. Like, I can do it. That's not my job. I'm actually teaching a class. Like, I can't just come and leave class and go in to do someone's janaza. And then like, well, the imam can't do it because he's doing another janaza at the same time. And I'm like, man, right? So like, the situations where you really have to be everything. Like you're coordinator, you're this, you're that. Oh yeah, and by the way, we need $15,000 as well for the burial. I'm like, okay, where's that coming from? And they're like, could you pay for it, brother? They're like, and you're one of those brothers who just like, I don't know what to do. Like literally, this guy's not going to be buried, or what's going to happen, and you were in this situation. So yeah, generally speaking, whenever there's good to be done and it's particularly hard, you have more reward, right? It's a big thing. Or people volunteering for hospitals, right? There's patients who are Muslims and they need help, or they're dying, right? And they need help, and there's nobody there to go and talk to them, like no Muslims. This office of mine is turning into a feline pandemonium. Panda also pandaphilium, is that should be called? Pandaphilium? I don't know what the word is. Like there's two cats like running around in my office. Alhamdulillah. They enjoy fiqh. SubhanAllah, when my cats died, um, one of my cats died, and it was about janaza, all right? Is one of my cats died and I wasn't home. The cat was just random, like the cat was just dead on the kitchen floor, like no reason. Nothing had happened. There was nothing before. So anyway, my neighbor Sonia, she came round and she sat with my mum for like 2 hours. My mum was just in tears, 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 and just looking after her, just helping her process it, right? And the cats didn't seem to care. The other cats didn't care. We had two other cats. They would just walk past this dead cat like nothing was there. No, no, like just nothing. When we buried the cat in the back garden, subhanallah, one by one the cats went and stood next to the grave. They did it. They went there and they stood next to the grave. And then even birds came and stood next to the grave, subhanallah. You know? I remember another cat, this is Ajib, another cat that I had many cats in my life. Gattino, his name was. Gattino means kitten in Italian. And poor guy, he had feline distemper. Okay, it was a common thing in Jordan. Feline distemper. Many of the kittens in the street would have feline distemper. So this kitten, the whole time, was screaming his head off. We just thought he's complaining, he's lonely, he's bored. I don't know what it is, right? So basically, this kitten is kind of like a baby that has, problems sleeping. It's like you just got to keep rocking him. So this kitten, I would put in my pocket. He was 3 weeks old, or if I put him in my pocket, go to the store, you know. He just wanted to be held the whole time because he was actually dying, right? We didn't know that. So 2 weeks later, my dad calls me like this kid, like, maybe he would keep having like problems with have like diarrhea, and we'd have keep having to wash him. And then he was like, my dad was like, listen, Farid, you didn't dry the cat. The cat got cold or something like that, and the cat's like basically like frozen almost. And so what happened is basically this feline distemper that's been developing for the last 2 to 3 weeks is basically catching up on the kitten. The kitten's dying. That's what it is. The kitten is basically not moving. He's very, very cold. The vet comes and and says, listen, this cat has feline distemper. 2 weeks ago, you could have done something. And it's like, oh man. I remember like complaining about this kitten. This kitten's like annoying. This kitten's just whatever this. And then it's like, subhanAllah, this kitten has been dying for the last 2 weeks, and we could have done something about it, right? Just an injection, it's not expensive. Get an injection 2 weeks ago, and you could have done something. And now this kitten is basically dying. He gave him one injection, tried to bring him to resuscitate. He said it may work, may not work. And then we had to bury the kitten that night. Um, so subhanAllah, this is life, And you think, oh, I could have done this, I could have done that. And and so how should we see that with our own family is, yeah, the situations, man, I should have told him to put the seatbelt on, right? And your kid died in a car crash, may Allah protect us all, because of a simple thing like a seatbelt. I should have not turned around, the kids were screaming, I turned around, looked back, there's a car crash, he died, may Allah, right? May Allah protect us all, whatever it is. But what is it really is, I should have worshipped Allah through that child when I could have. That's what we'll really miss. The child was alive, your dad was alive, your mom was alive, your brother was alive. I wish I should have taken the opportunity to worship Allah through that person. Respect to parents, kindness to children, right? I wish I wasn't so harsh with them. I wish I wasn't so distant from them, right? I wish when I had opportunities to worship Allah through them, I wish I had done it, right? Alhamdulillah, may Allah, accept from me. One of the last things my dad asked me to do is, my dad was into, he passed away like 3 years ago, was into robotics. He had this plan. He wanted to create a very, very simple robotic, what was it? Robotic um, uh, solar panel. So basically what happened is the solar panel faces the sun and moves with the sun, and then it provides electricity to people who don't have electricity, right? So in many hot countries, third world countries, people don't have electricity, even though they have obviously the ability to use solar panels, right? But the issue is it's too expensive. It's all these kind of things, right? Now it's not that difficult to do that, right? You could quite easily have some kid walking around, with a little cart that has solar panels on it, and this is providing them the electricity that they need, right? It's not that difficult. So I know he was planning to do this. So he was trying to create this design and do these things. So he was like, "Oh, Farid, there's this company in America. Can you please order it from these things?" And I was like, so I remember the last thing that subhanAllah, the last thing he said to me was on Skype. SubhanAllah, I haven't used Skype for such a long time. Was like, listen, this thing has been delivered to my house in America. How should I get it to you? So and so was traveling. I was supposed to send it. I wasn't able to. So oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Right. So these is like, your dad asked you to do something. Did you do it? Yes. Now you've saved that person. Your child was sick. Did you nurse them? Yes. Your child was crying. Did you comfort them? Yes. Did you do it for the sake of Allah? Yes. Now you've saved your child. But if you have a child and you didn't worship Allah through that child, then you don't have a child, and they are basically already dead. If you have an adult and you have a parent, and you're not worshiping Allah through that parent, then you don't have a parent. That parent is effectively already dead. If you are alive and you're not worshiping Allah through the opportunities that Allah gives you, then you're basically already dead, right? And so these are the key things that we need to do is like, oh, I wish I had that cat, or I wish I had this, or I wish this, or I wish that. It's like, yeah, that cat's dead, the parent's dead, the opportunity is now gone. That limb that you had is being taken off through the accident. May Allah protect us, whatever it is. But you missed out because when you had it, you didn't use it. Not that it's gone, right? Death is not a problem. Loss is not a problem. The issue is when you have an opportunity and you blow it. May Allah protect us all. Go ahead, Noor.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wow. Allah.
I had a question about I was reviewing a previous class if I could just ask a quick question.
Allah.
So it was for the Jum'ah. I realized I forgot to ask. We went over a lot of like the conditions and things like that, but my question was about, nowadays we see a lot of masajids have multiple Jum'ahs. Um, is that okay from a fiqh perspective as well?
So it's only okay if there's genuine need, right? So the issue in the Shafi school is we say, if your masjid needs 1,000 Jum'ahs, that's fine. If your city needs 1,000 Jum'ahs, that's fine. On the proviso that you don't have 1,001, because the 1,001st Jum'ah will be invalid. And if you're not sure if your Jum'ah was the 1,001st or not, the default is it doesn't count, and the default is you have to pray the Dhuhr, right? So what you need to do is, again, unity, right? This is our whole problem that we have in the Ummah in general, right? Is you get your area and say, listen, guys, let's try and have Jummah in one place. Okay, that's impossible. Okay, let's, okay, then at least, but what many people do is like, well, it'd be more convenient for me or for certain board members or for certain people who pay towards the masjid if we had a second Jummah. When you don't need it, right? You don't need it. And so it's only on a needs on a needs basis. Does that make sense?
And yeah, and would that need only be because of like overcapacity or
Over
some
capacity.
timing
There's no,
needs to?
there's no space. There's no space, right? But let's say, for example, if you again, as an example, I remember our imam in Brentwood, like he was always making the point. He was like, "Can you see how the big the car park is?" Right? We had a car park in the back, so you could easily have 500 people in pray Jumu'ah. But you're like, "Oh, we don't have enough space inside the masjid. You don't have to pray inside the masjid. Like you have a car park in the back, you can just do rows outside, right?" But then people are like,
Mm,
"I don't want to." Right? So obviously, if it's raining, that's an excuse. It's ridiculously cold, that's an excuse. It's ridiculously hot. Yeah, there were times like when you pray outside, and arguably it is difficult. But half of the time, it's like you're just lazy, Habibi. You know, like
hmm
it's not like you're not. So the point is, try your best, try your hardest, and then the rukhsa comes. But people don't do that. People don't go to the
Okay.
masjid. They just kind of like, ah, it's difficult. It's not bother, right?
hmm and then just quickly as well, I remember you mentioned people having to be residents. So, uh, for example, like at my university now, they have a Juma established on campus. But I was thinking, I'm pretty sure, I don't know how many people are residents of the city, but most people are people who just live there during the school year.
So
And I
it,
was questioning if it,
so the city is like a university city where there's hardly anybody there,
no, it's a city. If the university wasn't there, it would still be a significant city.
and there's 40 male Muslims that live in that city.
Well, for the university Juma, I'm not sure because there's a masjid like 15 minutes away as well. Um,
Oh, I see. So here the issue is basically we have a university masjid, even though in principle we could all go to the masjid.
hypothetically, but I think just for convenience of classes and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's what I'm talking about. It's convenience of classes. So right, so it's for convenience of classes. It's like, oh man, let's just do our own thing. Okay. So for that's not what we should be doing, right? So in principle, we should all go and pray in the. So what should happen is we all go to the masjid, and it's like there's actually no space for you guys. Okay, so now go and do another masjid somewhere else, right? That's the point.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. But the convenience is not there. So that's not that's not it shouldn't be like that. No. Okay.
So from an individual perspective, one should definitely go to the masjid in that
We go to
situation.
the masjid, all things being equal, unless you are excused, right? And I remember specifically asking Sheikh Abdul Rashid, I said, listen, an exam, right? Like this is my finals. It's a 4 hour exam. I can't go to Jummah. And he was like, it's not an excuse. I said, yeah, but it's like, isn't that your job and stuff like that? He didn't think it was an excuse. Wallahu a'lam. So
Jazakallah.
maybe somebody looks at it another way. Maybe says, "Yeah, listen, I paid all this money, and but Allahu Alam." He didn't consider that to be an excuse, like being in your finals or whatever. Like Allahu Alam. Maybe again, maybe others do. I'm not saying that's the only opinion, but maybe as others do. Okay, so then going back to janazah, then it says as two individuals are not buried in the same grave except out of necessity. There's no space, it's not possible, etc. Okay,
Question about this.
go ahead, Bismillah.
There have been times in history where people were buried in mass graves because of illness, right? I'm not talking about war crimes, that's clearly haram, but like illness. So people had cholera or the plague. Is that acceptable in the deen or no?
Yeah, so I assuming that it's too difficult to keep, like we're burying so many people, like it's just too difficult to keep up with the numbers, and we can't do it. Yeah, it's okay. You know, we can only have so many people doing it. Or the issue with COVID, remember, like only a certain amount of people doing it. They're gonna have to do this and do that, etc. when they're burying them. So it's difficult. So yeah, necessity. So that's yeah, plague. Many people like Sayyidina Anas. I think we mentioned many times Sayyidina Anas. He had something like 300 kids, right? But most of them died of the plague. So this is something that the Muslims have seen, you know, multiple times. It's a major issue, like you know, in world history and Islamic history. And Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, they all died of the plague in Jordan. I don't know which plague, but you know, it was a pretty serious thing. Okay, Bismillah, let's go now on to zakat. So
Sure.
go ahead. You had a question, Muhammad?
Yeah. On the previous page, I think you went through this last week, but I'm not sure. The one that's the grave is made level.
Yes. So by default, you should not build. There should be no buildings on the grave. It should not be built up. It should be flat with just a stone. Like this is where it is. Like here's your dad, you know. And then when it's like, oh, this is Sheikh so and so, this famous wali or this famous scholar, you should say this thing on it. But things should not be built up.
But I'm sure you've seen in Malaysia and Singapore,
For the
everyone's
whole
grave.
Muslim world. So is that the default in the Shafi school? No, it's not.
Okay.
Allahu A'lam. You know, it's similar kind of things like putting cloth on the walls of masjids and things like that. There's many things.
And
So
all
a
right.
key concept, not everything that the Wahhabi or Salafi movement have spoken about is wrong. Okay? Just like not everything that the Shia say is wrong. Not everything that communists say is wrong. Not everything that feminists say is wrong. So it's a key tool in life is to look at a group of people who are wrong and identify right things that they say. Okay, so you know, I remember one of my teacher, Sheikh Noor Kella, you know, talking about, for example, one of the key things that, for example, the Salafi movement, you know, the Salafi movement today and the past and etc. is against weak hadiths. And there is a case for that because if you look in many of the works written over the last 500 years in Islamic history, you will find in Islamic books, you will find a genuine lack of concern for quoting reliable hadiths and various random hadiths that shouldn't be mentioned in a book at all, suddenly finding their way into a book and then being published and then being read by the masses, which is wrong, right? So the Salafi movement came along and said, "I know Sahih hadith, etc." And so now, you know, so that's an example of something that is good that comes out of the movement that is wrong. Okay, you know, so the movement is wrong, right? Or, sorry, I'm going to get rid of this. This cat is climbing on Zakaria Ansari's book. The cat, I love the cat, but he can't climb on the book. With all due respect to the cat. Um, you know, so you will find people saying things. Ikhwan Muslimin. Oh, look, traditional scholars don't do anything. They just sit there, make dhikr, and talk about old books. Right? Is that true? It's true. It's a good objection. Right? I certainly, you know, so find, you know, a skill is people who are wrong, an approach that is wrong. Where is the truth or the elements of truth in what they're saying? Right. So there are certain things that you find like, okay, yeah, this they say this shouldn't happen, this shouldn't. I'd say some of those things that they're saying shouldn't happen is right. Does that make sense?
Yes, Ustaz. So which madhab allows that?
I don't
grave
know.
to be. Okay.
I don't know. خير. Okay, let's go on to zakat then. Let's stop the recording.